placing on them a limitation which is very emotional in its nature, and it's fear-based limitation, that they are going to be afraid to live their life in the world we are currently facing as the reality. This world isn't God's reality, I know that. It's also not loving. We also know that, right? It's pretty obvious it's not loving. There's huge amounts of problems in it. It's not loving. The issue is, if we educate our children enough in love, they will be able to determine the difference for themselves by the time they are probably 7 years old. And certainly by the time they're 12. They'll be able to know that was unloving. That's a young Archie, he tells his dad, "You're being unloving now, Dad." He knows more about love than his father does. Right? And isn't that what you want? You want your own children to know more about love than you do, because then they'll be more loving than you were, right? So of course you want that. And the beautiful thing about that is that by giving them experiences, a wide variety of experiences, you're exposing them also to what they might desire to do in the world. And if that experience is limited, now their decisions are automatically limited, not by them, but by you. Right? By your fears. They're limited by your fears. The belief that your child cannot cope with a difficult environment is limiting your child from coping with difficult environments. I believe a child, by the time it's like, if I could illustrate again, young Archie started having arguments with his father. Now, that's a tough thing to do. If any of you tried that by the age of 9, you will find that was a tough thing to do. In the first century, I did that from the age of 6, and I got hammered by my father.
Well, some of us might try at that age, but we soon get suppressed, don't we?
Yeah. So it is a difficult thing to do for a child to stand up to his own parents and say that's unloving. But isn't it a fantastic thing that he can even do that? Like, how well protected is he in his future? He'll be able to see anybody who treats him unloving, you're unloving. Straight away, he knows straight away. He might not have to tell them, but he will know. And he'll be able to make decisions and choices from that.
And because he's had the education to understand what love is, he can speak reasonably with his dad about it. It's not just like, "Oh, Dad, you're unloving." It's, "Dad, you're unloving because you lied to that guy. That guy came to buy something and you lied to him about it. You
falsely inflated a price and that wasn't fair to him." All sorts of things he tells him, like specifics.
Yeah. Because he's well versed in ethics and morality by this age. Yeah. But also he often has to come away and cry, sob, It's rough. But what resiliency,
But he's a very happy person.
In general.
He deals with his sadness as it happens. So he doesn't store it and save it for next time. He deals with it as it goes. But also he's learnt that he can handle any feeling. He doesn't need his mum to help him. He doesn't need his dad to help him with any feeling. He can handle any feeling. And he's a young man, really, and he's more grown up than most 50-year-olds we meet.
Sometimes in God's way he's been managing 50-year-olds, managing the activity.
We have him managing adults. And some of those adults, I don't know, Pierre, you might have even been on the end of his management. I don't know.
I don't think he's a manager yet.
Like he's managing adults, and he sits down with them and say, you did this today and you did that today, and that wasn't loving. And fair dinkum. He's like, and he's 12 doing this, and we trust him to do it because we can feel his condition, right? So he's switched on character, but he's had to learn how to deal with emotions, how to learn how to deal with things. He has very specific goals in his life.
And the older kids had more limits placed on them by mums and dads' restriction of their experiences, because mum started listening to Divine Truth when Archie was still in her tummy. He's really had the most benefit. The older two still have fears and worries about conflict and things because they weren't given the confidence from such a young age that they can engage truthfully with others.
So 12-year-old Archie will have a fight with Dad. 14-year-old Archie won't do it. 14-year-old Charlie won't do it.
No. And 16-year-old is angry. She's angry about injustice, and she doesn't feel like she can feel her grief, because when she was little, everyone comforted her out of her sadness, and she's left now with anger because she doesn't feel like
She feels scared of her grief.
She's very frightened to feel her sadness. So these are the kind of limits we place on kids when we protect them from experience and from, you've got to educate children and instill in them that they can be truthful and that there is a loving, moral, ethical way to act, and then trust that if they do that and they can develop humility and that they can thrive, really.
Yeah.
Most parents say you can't cope, really, because they can't cope. I want to protect you because... is that me? It's me.
No.
I kept thinking it was another
mic. No, it must be some other...
Yeah.
Where's the other two? Where's the two mics? Yeah, can you just be careful?
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
can I also say, though, we do agree that the world's educational system needs a lot of work.
Heaps.
It's very bad.
It's not good.
It's very bad. But we also feel that parents need to take far more personal responsibility for their child's education. And particularly the child's education in love, truth, humility, faith, all those fundamental principles.
100%.
And also, on top of that, the child needs to be educated in maths, science, arts, all these different areas, so that in the end the child can know what it wants to do in its future. That's very, very important. Now, a lot of times a parent doesn't have the skills to educate their child in science or chemistry or mathematics or, because all of us have limited skills in different areas, right? Whereas the school system does, to a degree, provide those skills where possible. And our personal feeling too is that quite often the public school system provides a wider variety of education socially and emotionally and with regard to love than the private school system does. Main reason why that is because people who go to private school generally pay a lot of money to send their children to such schools, and the child is learning that mum and dad will pay the money they need to get things done, right, in that process. That's not happening in a public school system, and so the child generally doesn't feel a class barrier. In private school systems, frequently they create class barriers. And so part of the love of a system needs to not create class barriers either. And this is the current problem with private school systems, in that they do create class barriers. They create barriers based upon money. You have more money, you can send your children there. If you don't have that much money, you can't. Simple as that. And so these particular systems all need to be overhauled. So the private school system and the public school system all need an overhaul. All of the alternate school systems all need an overhaul too, because as you can see, God's standard of love isn't the priority, but they all need an overhaul. But the biggest effect you can have as a parent on your child's education is to educate your children in the 5 fundamental principles.
And do your own, do that for yourself as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just around the fear, it's one of her fears.
Yeah, one of her fears, yeah.
I know what it's connected to, like from what I did to her when she was young.
Yeah.
That's part of it, but also I think she's very open to spirit, and so she's 11 and she's scared to go to sleep by herself.
Yes.
And
every time you go to sleep, you have to go through this. What happens when you sleep is your physical body stays on earth, and your spirit body and your soul goes into the spirit world, right? And every time you wake up, the body comes back, the spirit body comes back, and you wake up. So if you go to the toilet at night, that happens 2 or 3 times. But if you are sleeping all night, then it only happens once. But the earth, remember what I said about the earth. The earth is surrounded by 20 billion quite dark people, quite dark spirits, who all look quite scary. They all have quite scary intentions. They all generally want to interfere with people with their earth life. And they are particularly interested in scaring children, unfortunately, because it gives them a sense of power. So if you can teach your daughter how to feel fear...
I've tried. we're working on that, but it's not so easy.
Well, you've got to learn how to feel fear yourself
I
first.
do. I feel fear. I feel a lot of fear. I think I feel. No, I don't feel.
You're aware of fear.
You're aware of fear,
Yeah.
and
feel it in my
you
chest.
live in the effects of fear,
Yeah.
but you don't actually go through the terror as an emotional experience.
Uh-huh.
You're too afraid to do that at this stage. So first you've got to learn how to do it yourself. When you learn how to do it yourself, I'm sure your daughter will learn it from you anyway. But if she doesn't, then you can say, this is what I do, and work through that. And this will help her go to sleep, because at the end of the day, you nursing her to go to sleep doesn't overcome her fear.
Mm.
And this is why she needs it every night, right?
Well, she just needs somebody there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she needs it every night. Yeah. Yeah.
And so around feeling fear, like I've just, from listening to you, and but I don't know, maybe there's other stuff that I didn't, like, what's your advice around feeling fear?
You don't want to go through the raw experience of terror. Now, until you change the desire to go through it, you're not going to be able to teach your child how to go through it. That makes sense, doesn't it? You can't teach somebody something you don't yet understand fully how to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to need to firstly go through the raw experience of terror yourself. The trouble is that your child's experience of fear reminds you of your terror as well. So this is why you get very tied in to trying to prevent it in her by nursing her. Instead of encouraging her to go through the experience, actually your child is more able to go through the experience at the moment than you are. That you think she's less able, right? But all you've done is to suppress your terror, and so you're teaching her now how to suppress hers, right? Which is not a good thing to do. She needs to learn how to experience it, go through it, release it, so she never has it again. One of the things that will help is that all the people she sees when she goes to sleep and when she wakes up, because you go back into the spirit when you go to sleep and you come back when you wake up. You need to just educate her that they're people. They're people with feelings and emotions, and you don't have to be scared of them. They are people with feelings and emotions, but a lot of what your daughter is reflecting is your own terror. Because that's what children do. They reflect the terror of the parent. So the key here, of course, is to also work through your own terror while you're educating her about the truth about those spirits. Yeah. She's afraid of going to the spirit world and afraid of coming back, from what I can feel. Mm-hmm. So when she does go to sleep, she doesn't really want to come back and wake up either. Yeah. Quite often that results in children wetting the bed and other things like that. And this is what we notice with some, they don't want to come back to their bodies, even if they're dying to go to the toilet or something like that. They don't want to come back to their bodies for the same reason. And so it's a matter of dealing with that through an educational process.
But could it be that it's an injury that she has from when she was very small, because it was very difficult for her to sleep as a baby?
It's an injury she has from you.
Yeah, no, but because I left her, I did this thing of letting her cry herself to sleep when she was at some point, not at the beginning, but at some point.
Yeah, you were told by somebody.
Yeah,
obviously.
I was given the book by my mother-in-law.
That's right,
and I decided, okay.
Some expert.
Yeah, some expert.
Some expert.
And I think that she has an injury there.
Oh, certainly. She has a feeling that if she goes to sleep, she won't be loved.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's also something to address, isn't it?
Okay.
And the key to address that as a parent is to go through repentance about having done that.
Yes. Yeah.
But yes, she has a feeling that if she goes to sleep, love will be removed. And then, of course, she's going through the earthbound, all the earthbound spirits, and there's not much love there either. So it just sort of adds to the feeling.
Yeah.
And but when she's in the spirit world itself, she's not under that much harm or negative influence at this stage. Mm. So it's all to do with those two things you mentioned.
Yeah, that was very good, the love being removed.
See, every time you're in terror or fear of something, love is removed. And also when the child is not, when the child is sort of said, oh, you're on your own now, there's a lot of fear that generally generates in a child because it feels itself on its own. So I'm not saying that a child shouldn't sometimes be left to cry. It depends on what kind of crying they're doing as to whether they should be left or not. If the kind of crying they're doing is processing through an actual emotional experience, then they should certainly be left alone and reassured afterwards that they did the right thing and they processed through. Sometimes when a child is crying, it's because it wants you to be there. And under those circumstances, you've got to go, well, now I've got to work out whether being there is wise for the child or not wise for the child. But see, you can explain these things to the child, can't you?
Yeah.
But most of us don't. We just think, oh, some experts told me I've got to do this, and so I'll do it and I'll try it, because we're usually, as parents, we're at our wits' end about what to do. And so we try pretty much anything, including a lot of unloving things. So obviously she's also had this sort of feeling that if she goes to the spirit world by herself, she won't be loved. So that's obviously not true, but it's something she now feels. So it's something she's going to have to go through emotionally to release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think the day's done, isn't it, today for you guys? Yeah. We didn't get to the relationship issue, but that's sometimes how it goes. I wanted to talk about the children issue because it's a fairly big issue for many people on earth. And obviously you can see that when we talk about children issues, we start to also see how we weren't brought up right as children. And that's also very helpful because that also helps you face where you've actually been injured from God's perspective. What is God's standard? And you can start to admit to yourself then, my own parents weren't living God's standard. So naturally there's going to be some results from that, And quite often what we do as adults is we reason ourselves out of the pain of it by going, oh, but every parent was like that, or they didn't know what they were doing, and they were just young themselves, and I know what it's like because when I was, when I had my first child, I didn't know what to do either, and we reason ourselves out of our own pain. And this is a very damaging thing to do for your own future because the pain is going to stay in you while you deny it. So it's going to finish up guiding your life in a very unconscious manner for many. You'll do things naturally that are unloving without even thinking they're unloving because of the feelings that are still within. So it's very important too that when we have the discussion about how to bring up children, that we also think about it ourselves as to how we were brought up as children and what we can now do to deal with the injuries we gathered from our uneducated parents. Right? This is something that is very helpful to do because then you could start reflecting and working through, I didn't see that as God's standard, and I didn't see that as God's standard, and I'm actually reasoning with myself to avoid the pain that I actually have. Right? And this is what many of us end up doing. We reason with ourselves by even just saying, well, they didn't mean it, and they weren't purposeful, and they were mistaken, and all that's may be true. All of it may be true, but at the end of the day, you still hurt from it, and that hurt is still in you. And if you want to progress to God's standard of love, you need to get rid of it, because if you don't get rid of that hurt, you will carry that hurt, and you will, through the prevention of that hurt, you will hurt others. You will sin towards others if you carry that hurt with you. So this is why we've got to be brave enough to face our own hurt, deal with it, work through it in a proactive manner, and get to the stage where we understand love better. That's the goal. Microphone, thank you.
I just wanted to say one little comment that when we are thinking about our own experiences and having the dialogue with ourselves to try to guide ourselves out of something, face something.
Yep.
We never see ourselves because we we don't see ourselves, we're internal. And I have found that going to a mirror and looking ourselves, in the mirror and
Yep.
talking to our own eyes, our own self,
Yep.
a lot of truth out loud
Yep.
will really come out in a way that it's sort of cyclical inside when we don't see ourselves.
Yeah, so really what you're saying is asking about or talking about is methods to connect.
A tool.
There's lots of different ways to connect, and for every person, there's going to be different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like the average man, I find, look in the mirror, doesn't do much for him.
Well, it's just like it seems to me it's just a suggestion.
I agree,
of a
and
good
I'm
way
not saying.
to be honest.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
not saying don't use these methods.
And I'm
I'm
not
saying
do use it. I'm just saying that there's something quite powerful. I found
for you.
Yeah, for me.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I acknowledge that, but at the end of the day, it might not be powerful for everyone else. What I'm suggesting to you is find what is powerful for you, whatever methods you can find, and if they are powerful for you, while they work, use them so that you can access them.
But I only wanted to say that because in so many of the things that it's clear that there are good ways to face ourselves, I keep saying to myself, well, how will I really do that? How can I really do that? And
Yeah, can I
so
say to you though that you're using your mind a lot to solve what is an emotional problem, and you will find once you start progressing more emotionally, you won't need as many techniques to access the emotions as you currently use. So I'm not against the techniques, but what I'm saying is you've got to be very careful that eventually those techniques become a crutch rather than a help. And the reality also is when you truly want to deal with an emotion in your soul, your feelings, you will deal with that emotion without any other tool necessary. God designed you to be able to deal with things without using any tool. Right? That's how he designed you. Now, I understand while you're making progress, you might need a few tools. So I understand that. But what I'm saying is once you get to the stage where you really want the feelings and you really want to live that life, and in fact, once you basically live the way God intended us to live, you will find you won't need any tool, any encouragement, any talk therapy, any therapist, any manual tool, nothing. You won't need any of those things to access your emotions after a while. But if you need them at the moment, that's fine. Just use them until you get to that point where you don't need them.
thank you.
Yeah. Emma?
So, I'm now seeing the things I've taught Elsa that aren't very good.
Yep.
But I feel I'm just being judgmental.
Of yourself?
Of myself and her, perhaps.
Yep. How are you being judgmental of her?
Well, I feel like I want to correct her, but I don't really know what a loving way
Well,
of
remember, as
correcting
we said
her.
to Ed and Ellie,
Is it the same when she's 9?
you've got to first deal with your own.
Yeah,
Yep.
so when I actually see something that's happening, if I feel like I can't address it in a loving way, I don't do anything, or like.
Well, Em, you're very worried about just correcting anything on any level with your child.
Yes.
So I
are.
think you have some false ideas about what.
You're a bit worried she won't like you at the end of it either.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And that's, too bad.
Yeah. Have a feel about it, Mum.
Yeah, have a feel about that.
Yeah.
The reality is loving actions, and this applies to any situation, not just with children, loving actions and choices are always available to you in any condition you are.
Okay.
So you've got to stop telling yourself, because I'm not loving yet, I should take no action.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because the problem with that is that you're actually, that often it's in the action that causes you to realise what love is.
Okay.
Right? So if you decide, so this is what happens with a lot of people who hear what we're talking about, God's standards, go, Hugh, is there's so many areas where, you know, I'm not meeting God's standards. I'll just give up. You know what I mean? Or what can I do about it? I might as well just throw in the towel.
Yeah, it's not an option.
No,
when
God,
we're living together all the time.
and also
it's
God
not-
doesn't allow for that option.
No.
Yeah,
it
including
feels
throwing
wrong.
in the towel by suicide. God, there's a law that governs that as well.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't suggest doing that either. So the important thing to do is go, right, loving action is always available to me. What I need to choose to do is I need to sit down, try to feel God, try to feel God's laws, try to, learn the basic principles of love, truth, and all those kind of things, and then go with what I know right now, which we understand is not going to be the complete thing of what you will know in the future, but with what I know right now, what is my most loving thing to do for Elsa?
Yeah. Okay.
And for you, it's going to be send her to school.
Yeah.
Among many other
And
things.
for Elsa,
Yeah.
she's going to hate it
Yeah.
for a while.
Well, she did go for a couple of weeks when we were in Australia, and the
Yeah.
first week she was disagreeing about many things she was asked to do.
Of
And
course.
the teacher did have to say to her, I set the rules here, and you have to do it.
And
then
isn't
we had to
that-
have a conversation
And
about
isn't
it.
that wonderful? Because one of the things your daughter needs to learn is that there are laws,
Yeah.
and that she needs to learn how to live by them.
Yeah.
It is because that's the thing she's not learning.
Yeah.
At the moment, she's learning like there's no rules. I can do whatever I want,
Yeah.
and this is not good for her relationship with God, right?
No.
So it's interesting. The very first problem
Yeah.
that the
Was
teacher is
rebellion.
addressing with your daughter
Yeah.
is law,
Yeah.
right? And this is not a bad thing, right? Now, I'm not agreeing that always the teacher will have the right law,
Yes.
but I'm saying, well, what's the problem with just doing, if the teacher wants you to stand up, then stand up. What's the
Yeah.
problem with that? If you already know that you don't have to do it in your normal day-to-day life, wouldn't you want to stand up just to please her, or just to make her comfortable, or
Yeah.
just to make her life easier?
Or just to keep the peace in the environment. If nobody complied with the laws,
Yeah.
then it would just be
Now,
chaos.
you imagine you've got 30 children,
Yeah.
and one of them is constantly rebelling.
Yeah.
How hard is that teacher's life going to become?
Yeah.
It's going to become a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, the teacher needs at least some order in her classroom in order to get some things done,
Yeah.
right? And when you're teaching your daughter fight everything,
Like the bad stuff. I
Well, how
thought,
does
but
she know
actually
what is bad?
She doesn't know when she's not.
she thinks
In-
what's bad is what you think is bad,
Yeah.
which is not what God thinks is bad. Order is
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
and she's fighting it.
Yeah.
And you're very reticent to set law in your own home.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, how do I start doing that when I haven't done it and I see the errors that I've
Just
made?
start
And
doing
you've just told me the answer. So.
Start
You
doing
just
it.
have to start and feel your feelings. and
See, what you want is to go, but I want to know if I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing here.
Yes, I do.
Blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to be in your ear for 24/7. Why do you want me to be? You've heard me for 5 hours now. Why would you want to hear me for another 24?
it's only me who wants that.
Thankfully. And also, I don't talk all the time.
No.
Mary does half the talking. So, well, probably more than half the talking, actually. But Mary catches up for all the talking she didn't do. So if I have to be in your life telling you do this, do that, that's not good for you either.
No.
You need to have a relationship with God that says, okay, I have done the wrong thing here. I need to take some action about it. What are the decisions I can make now to make a better choice for my child, so that by the time she's 10, how old are you now? 9? 1 year. By the time she's 10, she understands law. By the
Yeah.
time she's 10, she understands how to socially engage with an older person.
Yeah.
By the time she's 10, she understands that you can. There's no harm in wanting to please people.
But yeah,
To a limit? Because I have done
What limit?
people
Like,
pleasing.
God wants to
Yeah.
please you 24/7.
no, in a loving sense. Can we just clarify that? Because Elsa does have a large addiction to pleasing people, but in a way that's getting her
But I
emotions
mean,
for
bring
her.
pleasure to people's lives.
Her people pleasing is really about pleasing herself,
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
approval. It's
So
not
it's
really
different than what
about
I'm referring to.
Yes.
bringing pleasure to others. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I spend time with you, I want to help you in your life. Why would I not want to? The only reason why I wouldn't want to is because I'm angry or upset or something, isn't it? Like, why wouldn't I want to help you? Like, if I love you, surely I'd want to help you. See, we've got to help our children come to see that actually they're not single, alone people in the world. There's other people they're interacting with,
Yeah.
and they need to learn how to love them,
And
Yeah.
they're equal.
whether they're loved or not.
Yeah. That was the question you were saying earlier about teaching your child to care about others.
Yeah.
Like, how do you teach them to care about others when you haven't really given them that opportunity before?
That's right.
Yeah, so you just start giving them the opportunity. Is that
They need to be with other people, and then you notice their behaviour and you go, wow, you weren't very loving there. This is what love would do here, and this is what love would do there. They need to, you know, when she's interacting with you probably already do that, but when it comes to
I don't know
interacting
that you
with
do. Yeah.
all
Not
of
all
the
the
people
time.
here or other children in particular, because else you have a very sort of superior view of, mum has a superior view, so you have one, of I'm better than other children, I can fight my own teacher. Isn't that wonderful? Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
while it's good that she can stand up for truth potentially, is she actually standing up for truth or an error?
No, at the
Like she
moment
needs
it
to
was-
know these things, right?
Yeah, at the moment it was just rebellion.
That's right, that's right. It's like, I don't want to do it, so I'm not doing it. And this is
Yeah.
what we notice when you both come to God's Way programs, right? If Else doesn't want to weed the garden, she's not weeding the garden, she's just going to sit there and just moan about it and never do anything. Now,
Well,
it's-
often she does it because she wants to please me, but she's not very happy about doing it.
yeah, and isn't the goal to be happy about environmental recovery?
Yeah,
You know, one of the things we're trying to teach people in God's Way is the work done to recover the environment is good work.
yeah,
It should be fun. It should be,
enjoyable.
you should enjoy it. So if you're not enjoying it, you've got a problem.
Yeah,
But hard work is not a problem. The body is built for it.
yeah. I think a part of it is like I've often worked too hard when I'm not enjoying it. So
Of course,
Yeah.
now you're talking about how your emotions are affecting your
Yes,
child's
yes.
behaviour. You're basically saying she shouldn't have to work that hard because when I was a child, you know, I had to work too hard and it was all too hard. And my father pushed me and he pushed me into things I didn't want to do. And there's all this pain and suffering that you have
yeah,
that you're now saying, oh, I don't want my child to have it, so what I'm going to do is the opposite. And the opposite is not going to work because it's like
No.
the swinging pendulum. Your father treated you badly and now you're treating your daughter badly,
yeah,
but in the opposite direction.
yeah. Thinking that was more loving because it was the opposite of what I experienced, but
Correct.
actually seeing that there's negative consequences from that too.
And it comes from not wanting to feel your own feelings about what happened to you.
Yeah,
That's where it comes from. And so we enter into this state of going, do the opposite,
yeah,
not understanding the opposite has its own problems, its own unlovingness. Yep.
yeah,
And this is what we see in most relationships. People go one way, the other way, not understanding that both ways are unloving from the point of view of God's standards. And so this is what we want to enlighten people with about their children, is that obviously if more and more children are brought up in the manner Elsa is, then our world's in for a nightmare future.
I've seen that in England, being home educating, and the kids that are just being left to their own devices. They're wild.
They're
and
what?
and they don't care about others. And they're
Spirit
completely
influenced,
selfish
wild
and
generally,
spirit influenced
without
and-
any love of others,
Yeah.
without any care of others,
Yeah.
without any like social conscience,
No.
all for
And no
themselves,
aspirations.
no aspirations,
No.
no desire to fix anything.
No.
It's funny when we have them in God's way, because we put them in God's way and you think, oh, children less damaged. No,
No.
I'm sorry, no. You know, a lot of the children who come, they're lazy, they say they want a better environment, but they're not prepared to do anything about it at all. No physical labour at all. They want somebody else to do it. And this is why some of these people who get up in front of even the United Nations, you know, saying the United Nations, you should fix the world. No, the children are going to have to fix the world. We damage because we're all going to be dead by the time, you know, it happens. So if they don't, if they are asking all of their mummies and daddies to do it for them, at the end of the day, it's not going to work out very well because most of us are going to be dead mummy and daddies by then.
I think that some of it comes from like the parents are hopeless, and so they don't feel like giving. Like the parents have given up with the children.
Oh,
and
for
the,
sure.
And the children have sort of given up with everything.
Oh, for
so
sure.
It's just a
Oh.
sort of sense of apathy, or like
I agree, but
it's
But
not.
that's
it's not
just
loving.
No, it's
yeah,
not good.
and it's just coming from the fact that they're trying to prevent their child having the childhood that they had,
Yeah.
and then they realise, oh, this isn't going that well. I don't know, give up.
I think
you
this
know.
comes back to the first thing I said about judgment. like I feel if I'm trying to assert some loving boundaries, I'm being judgmental.
Yes.
Well,
Being
again, that's
too hard, but it's my issue.
From your dad,
It
right?
was too hard and judgmental.
He was always judgmental, right? Judging you for everything.
This is going to be great for your relationship with God, Emma,
Yeah.
because you can receive God's education through this process. Except you're not going to get it right the first day. You know, there's going to be a process of correction that you go through.
Yeah.
If you rely on God's opinion and seek God's guidance,
Yeah.
you will get there. You cannot rely on Elsa's responses because she's not going to like
She's
it.
unreliable, just like you are. Yeah.
Yeah, you've both got great potential,
Yeah.
but it's going to take you developing that, which is what you want. You
Elsa's
want
got the
your
advantage.
relationship
She's a
with
very
God.
intelligent girl, so she'll work it out pretty quickly as long as you stick to the God's standards.
Yeah, I
She
see
was,
how
yeah.
she really responds to what I'm doing and what I'm feeling. And
Yeah.
when I'm feeling like shut down and judgmental, then she reflects that.
Yeah.
And when I'm feeling more
Open
confident,
and confident, yeah.
open, then she reflects that too. So yeah, I
Yeah.
just need to keep doing what I'm doing and correcting her as best I can, getting the assistance from God.
Yeah, and don't avoid action just because you feel that
Don't
you're
feel I'm
being
good
bad,
enough. Yeah,
and
Or-
because you feel guilty.
yeah,
Don't avoid action. That's a big mistake a lot of parents make. Once they realise that they've done the wrong thing, they try to, they go, oh, well, there's nothing to do now.
yeah. I was
Because they're
feeling
too
a bit of
scared to do
hopelessness,
something
yeah.
different oftentimes. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Because it's going to require things of you, humility of you, and you're going to feel uncomfortable, but it's also going to require you making a decision,
Yep.
a firm decision. Okay,
And
there's
take
going to
action.
be law in our house,
Yeah,
and we're going to get there. We're going to get it right. It's not going
it's
to
going to be God's law, not
It's
mine.
going to be God's, not mine.
because both of you are God's children, right?
Yeah.
it's been mine so far. It doesn't work.
That's right. That's right. And yours, yeah.
Because yours has just been a rebellion against Dad's,
Yeah.
and that,
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah.
not. It's not.
Yeah, so one of the things to help the children with is say, look, what I'm trying to do now is embrace God's laws in our family. They won't be my laws, and if you think they're my laws, well, let's have a discussion. Let's have a reasonable discussion about it if you think they're my laws. And by the time they're Elsa's age, you can easily do that. You can easily reason and say, if you think they're my laws, then you guys are off. Yeah, you have to leave.
Yeah, because we forgot that the hour is changing. In
Oh, of
Spain, and
course.
We got our flight from Spain.
Of
so-
course, yeah. So see you later, guys. Yeah, it's nice to see
Oh my
you.
God, we're missing the flight.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah,
See you guys.
see you later,
Lovely
guys.
to meet you
Lovely.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, good to meet you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we were having a conversation yesterday. Actually, I realised that Eloisa said to me, "Don't just talk to Elsa. You've got to take action."
And you've got a
and-
reason.
And so yesterday we were having a conversation. I had the idea of like, what things would God reward and what things would God correct, and
Yeah.
then if we had like a table of like what things would be rewarded and what things would
Yeah,
be
'cause
corrected, and then
Yeah,
like,
because the
and
goal
then we
in the
know
end,
we're on
isn't
the
it?
same page about it. And then
Yeah, but the goal in the end is to help Elsa get to the stage where she does that for herself.
yeah, and I was saying that too. Like this is just like the start of
That's right.
like both of us getting an education really.
That's right.
Like for my own benefit, what things are
That's
to
right.
be aspired to and what things are to be cut down on, and then my role as a parent, like how do I want to say enforce that, but hopefully I wouldn't have to if Elsa engaged it. But is it my role to like enforce that somehow?
Well, obviously, when the child is quite young, you can enforce it through restriction and other.
It is your job, though. Yes, can I just say
is.
affirmatively? It is your job to enforce the law.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
the older your child gets, the harder that becomes,
Yes. Yeah,
isn't it? Like the bigger she gets,
she's quite big
once
now.
she's your size, and you try to restrict her behaviour, what's she going to do? Like, hey, mate, I'm doing my own thing, right?
Yeah.
So the older they get, the harder that becomes. So the real thing you want to teach is how they can control their own behaviour.
Yeah.
That's what you really want to get to the stage. So by the time Elsa's 12, you want her to be wanting to be loving herself
Yeah.
and controlling her own behaviour and dealing with her own emotions so that she can be loving
Yeah.
herself.
So this,
And not so you can then sit back, go to the Bahamas, and else will be loving no matter what you do.
so this is going back to like self-responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
You need to teach your child self-responsibility. Yeah.
Initially, she doesn't have any faith that there's rewards to loving behaviour.
Yes.
But
So-
there is. They're great rewards.
You just need to give her enough experiences to understand there are rewards, internal rewards for her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
No worries, guys. Well, that's probably the end of me for the day.
And you guys, I
And
think,
you guys
eh?
probably
Yeah.
too. How do you feel tomorrow? Shall we just maybe do a bit of mediumship in the morning or something like that? Or just have a talk about some of the spirit questions that you've asked?
Both.
Yeah. Yep. So also, when Mary and I do mediumship, I must say to you, we're not providing you with a spectacle, and we're not doing it for the purpose of sort of proving to you that there are spirits or anything like that. We know there are. We don't need to prove it to you. All we're going to do is have conversations with them, and it's up to you to assess whether those conversations are real or not.
The problem is we always say we'll start early and then we'll end early and then we
But we don't end early.
just go the same length of time.
Yeah,
10 at least, hey?
10, I think.
Yeah.
Can we do that tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah. That gives us a bit more time in the morning.
Yeah.
And then for how long? How long will it be?
So,
Who knows
what's that?
how long?
How long? Yeah, how long's a piece of string? I don't know.
Yeah.
How long you want it to be?
Thank you everyone for your participation today.
Better-
yeah,
better
it was
today.
lovely. Yeah.
Sorry.
You can.